Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee to order. Councilmember Zion and myself present, which constitutes a quorum. I'd like to ask that we take items number 1 through 5 on consent.
Wow, that's a lot of consent.
Without objection.
Wait a second.
Don't believe there's a lot of controversy.
Up to 5?
Yeah, 1 through 5.
Yeah. Which one was Ms. Gibson cheering for? I'd like to call that one special.
5.
And
You'll have saved my mind.
number 6. Okay, no, that's fine. Non-controversial.
All right, so you're asking that we pull number 5?
I'm just kidding.
No, okay. All right, so item 1 through 5 we'll go through without objections on consent. Item number 6.
For item 6, the city attorney has submitted a report in an ordinance. This has to do with an amendment to the municipal code and the sale of commercially bred dogs, cats, and rabbits in pet stores, retail businesses, or other commercial establishment in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you, and we'll begin by opening the public hearing and hearing from members of the public. Anyone else that wishes to speak and hasn't submitted a slip should do so. We'll start with those against the proposal. Mike Canning with the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Michael Canning, and I'm with the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council in Washington, D.C. We are a 40-year-old organization that attempts to further animal welfare and also environmental stewardship and also ensure the supply of pets for the American public. I'd like to try to, after having reviewed the proposed ordinance, I'd like to try to paint a picture for you what I think the city, as it relates to pets, is going to look like if this passes. 11 retail pet stores closed, 60 people out of work, 9 families, the owners of these stores, without their long-term investment and that they've tried to build with their businesses, 11 commercial landlords left with empty spaces and unpaid leases, 1 store, Allen's Aquariums, because of the rabbits that they sell and the related supplies, will lose $52,000 a year in revenue, have to lay off 2 of his workers. In regards to the animal welfare benefits of the legislation, how many additional adoptions will occur out of animal shelters as a result of this bill? I would submit to you the answer is 0. Yes.
I
would submit to you that the answer is 0 extra dogs, because there's no studies that support the concept that when a person is looking for a puppy of a certain breed, if they can't find it, that they can go to, they'll go to a shelter and get another dog. How many substandard breeding facilities will be put out of business? 0, because there are numerous pet pathways, and if a substandard breeding facility is breaking the law, and shame on them, and producing puppies in abhorrent conditions, which something I know the members of this committee, the audience, and myself all abhor, well, what's going to happen? Well, those substandard breeding facilities are going to avail themselves of myriad pathways for pets, the internet, flea markets, side yard sales, and there's going to be no, so they're not going to go out of business.
And I'll give you a little extra time as you're the only
Thank you so much.
opposition.
So with minor tweaks to this legislation, what we would like to do is make this actually into an animal welfare piece of legislation. How we would do that would be to require stores to have monthly adoption events, just like Petco and PetSmart do. Further, we'd like to set standards for the importation or the sources of puppies so that we know where these puppies have come from, and there's been no studies that tell where these puppies come from, so that we know that they're coming from good places. So basically, the concept that I'd like to leave you with is why shut down the capacity of these 11 pet stores to actually be part of the solution? And so that's what we'd like to hopefully have an ongoing conversation with you about. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Speakers in favor, Dale Bartlett, to be followed by Jennifer Peterson.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Dale Bartlett. I'm with the Humane Society of the United States, and we support this proposed ordinance. I think that it's a very carefully crafted ordinance. And obviously we applaud the goals of trying to increase the number of animals that are adopted through LA City shelters. We hear PJAC's concerns, certainly, about ways to achieve that goal. But frankly, having a once-a-month adoption event is like a light version of what this ordinance intends to do. It's like saying, we think this will work, but let's only do 1/4 or 1/10 or 1/30th, actually, if it's once a month, of the good that this proposal could do. We've seen that pet stores have been able to thrive and flourish after adopting a humane model and using only rescued animals, only selling rescued animals through their stores. And so I think the claims that stores are going to go out of business are false and are at a minimum wildly exaggerated, because we know all over the country stores are making this switch, and they're finding that it not only is a viable economic model, but is also making them more a part of their community, and they're experiencing a lot of good community goodwill, and people come into their stores and feel like they're doing the right thing. They're helping to save an animal's life, and that helps them in turn move on all of those pet supplies and any other services that they provide. A lot of them provide grooming, and some do obedience training, things like that. So these services are more likely to be purchased by a consumer who has a good feeling about the store that they've just visited and who feels like they've shared this thing. They've shared this thing with that store where they've just saved an animal's life. I think the ordinance is in keeping with the with all of the other things that the city of LA is doing right now to try to reduce the number of animals that are euthanized in its shelters and to increase adoptions. Even if this were just one piece of the puzzle, it would be a good piece, but seen as a part of this broader strategy to help save homeless animals' lives in LA, I think it's, I hope it's supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Peterson, be followed by Patty Schenker.
Hi. My name is Jennifer Peterson. I am a Los Angeles native. I was born and raised here, went to college here, and now work as a producer-director, and as often as I can, I create content that educates people about animal welfare issues. A couple of years ago, I, like so many others, had no idea where pet store and internet puppies came from. I didn't have the facts. Then a dear friend of mine purchased a puppy from a local pet store called Barkworks, and within days, that puppy became deathly ill. A few days later, my friend's other dog became deathly ill from the parasite she got from that puppy. You see, commercially bred puppies, almost without exception, come with parasites, and that is something pet store owners never tell you. Now, luckily, these two dogs survive, but the statistics of puppies who don't make it are staggering. Los Angeles going humane, to me, makes perfect sense. This is an amazing city. This is a progressive city. This is a city that I am very proud to call my home. But what many people don't realize is that going humane is actually a very smart business decision. Last October, I was proud to announce that one of the largest shopping mall developers in the country, the Macerich Company, owning over 80 malls across the United States, went humane. You might be familiar with a few of their malls here, like Santa Monica Place, Westside Pavilion, and the Oaks. As of November 2011, they no longer lease space to any pet stores that sell commercially bred animals, nor will they renew leases of any pet stores currently in place. They didn't do this because they had to. They did it because they knew it was the right thing. And they knew that it would actually gain customers for them. And that's exactly what has happened. As a matter of fact, they are now working on putting adoption centers in every one of their malls. So in conclusion, I can't wait to tell my friends and family that I live in a humane city. Thank you. I thank you all for the work you're doing on behalf of the animals. Mr. Kretz, I especially thank you. And just thank you for all the help you're doing to, for all the animals suffering right now in puppy mills across the country and the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Patty Schenker, to be followed by Sylvia Miller.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I thank you for introducing this ordinance and urge your support of it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. This is an important issue for me, especially since I have personally gone on 3 legal puppy mill raids, 2 in Tennessee and 1 in Texas. What I saw was beyond decency, beyond words, as I can't share with you the foul, toxic stench of death and decay, or the screams from the frightened dogs, or the feel of their bones sticking out from their bodies. The conditions these dogs were forced to live in was unbearable. Dilapidated rabbit hutches with plastic around them for insulation, the absence of food and water, and the severe health problems that most had due to lack of care, to name a few. I witnessed several dogs staying warm by cuddling with their dead friends, dogs eaten by others due to starvation, dogs physically attached to their cages due to the severe matting of their fur. We had to wear gas masks to even go into certain rooms to get the dogs out due to the high toxicity levels that they were forced to live in. I have learned, sadly, that several dogs have died since our rescue due to the severe health conditions that continued to plague them. These were in other states, but the truth is puppy mills are everywhere, and they are causing great suffering to animals, but also to our cities, our counties, and our citizens who have to take the emotional and financial responsibilities of these unwanted pets. To pass this ordinance would be almost as great a gift to our city as it would be to the animals and those who care about them, as it would not only save lives, but save money. It would also set a precedent that other cities would follow. Banning the sale of puppy mill pets will definitely be a huge part of the solution to the pet overpopulation problem. Anthony Thomas Williams once said, "Humans need to be humane for the sake of humanity." The city of Los Angeles needs to pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia Miller, to be followed by Barbara Wilson.
I'm Sylvia Miller. I live in Arcadia. I am very concerned about the conditions of animals in irresponsible breeders, particularly the mothers and the puppies. Responsible breeders, I understand, do not sell dogs or cats or rabbits to pet stores. I'm also very concerned about so many homeless animals in the street and in shelters that get euthanized because there are not enough homes for them, and they could otherwise be adopted. And this ordinance could help alleviate these 2 issues. And Los Angeles could be a model for other cities, which I would very much like to see and be very proud of. Arcadia is not that far from Los Angeles, and I feel a part of Los Angeles. And I would very much like to see this ordinance passed. And pet stores, as has been said before, pet stores can do very well without selling animals from irresponsible breeders. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Wilson, to be followed by Judy Mancuso.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the chance to make a few statements. In 2005, an undercover investigation in California pet stores discovered that nearly half of the pet shops had animals on display that were visibly showing signs of illness, injury, or neglect. And also nearly half of the stores sold animals showing clear symptoms of psychological distress. In fact, as Sylvia just said, that the responsible breeders won't sell to pet stores. In fact, many of the breeder organizations have a code of ethics that asks all of their members to sign that they will pledge that they will not sell their pets to pet stores. And there are plenty of, well, let me come back to that in a second, just that I recognize that not all the dogs and cats and rabbits that are in pet stores have come from the totally egregious, horrendous description that we just heard. But in fact, any large commercial breeder cannot possibly provide the social and psychological well-being required of pets that are the animals that we relate to, and do come in frequently with illnesses and psychological damage. And across the country, it's been shown many pet stores, many chains, many independent small businesses have switched to a humane model and are doing just fine. It's a profitable model if worked out carefully. And many of these stores also do support adoption days from their local shelters, which further adds to reducing the pet problem in the shelters, the pets that are euthanized. Finally, I think that this ordinance has the possibility to promote community awareness of animal welfare and to encourage people who do want family pets to adopt them from shelters, and thereby reducing the number of perfectly good adoptable animals, loving animals that are needlessly euthanized every day in our city. So I would be very proud of Los Angeles at moving forward in this humane way with this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Mancuso, to be followed by Ed Buck, our last speaker on this item.
Hi everyone, thank you. Well, I think that the city attorney's office did a great job drafting this ordinance, and I think that Mr. Cannon probably flew in from DC because he understands what influence Los Angeles has on the rest of the United States and what's at stake. And he mentioned that 11 stores would close. 11 stores don't need to close by any means. They can transition to this humane model. And like he also mentioned, that Petco and PetSmart already have these adoptions. Well, Petco and PetSmart are already doing this voluntarily, that they don't have puppy mill animals and they do the adoptions. So I agree with him that these stores should move in that direction, and that's exactly what this ordinance will do. What he doesn't realize, which is state law, is that cage cards are required at stores in California that show where the animal was sourced from. So we actually do know where these animals come from. And they come from Midwest puppy mills, many that are in the same shape as Patty talked about, and that have USDA problems, points against them. And homegrown puppy mills in Lancaster and San Bernardino and some of the outskirts that we know about. They get busted, they're horrific, just as the Midwest. So this is a huge step, and thank you all so much for doing this.
Thank you, Judy. Ed Buck, and I have several other cards that I didn't know I had, so to be followed by Tina Clark.
Hi, Ed Buck. We can all agree, everybody, that puppy mills are evil and they need to be closed down. Problem is that we're dealing with the supply side by trying to close down puppy mills, but we don't have jurisdiction over them. What we can do is deal with the demand side. Los Angeles being the second highest source outlet for puppy mill dogs. The public policy question becomes, how do we do this? We heard P-Jack.
What is that noise out there?
Sorry.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Your hearing aid? Okay, thank you.
How embarrassing.
I apologize, but
Sorry about that.
You can imagine what it's like from in here trying to hear.
we're all going in that direction.
The people from Washington came into town and tried to tell us options without researching the fact that it's already illegal to sell dogs on the streets or sidewalks or public property at all. These laws are humane and they are ultimately constituent driven. When the people from Washington talked about the dollar incentive to their stores, they are forgetting that many of us, many of your constituents, are demanding these kind of moves, regardless of the dollar signs involved. So I encourage you to move forward with this, as it is not only the humane thing to do, it is sane public policy. And sorry about that.
Thank you. Tina Clark, followed by M. Catalano.
I didn't prepare anything to say, and I know that people have already said pretty much everything, so I'm not going to repeat. I just want to agree with everyone. The puppy mills, at their best, are horrendous. You can't make money. You can't have enough animals to make money and still take care of them. The idea that pet shops will go out of business if they stop selling puppy mill puppies is ridiculous and false. I live in Glendale, and we have recently just passed such a measure. The way it was passed was there was a gentleman who had a pet shop. He sold puppies from puppy mills, and someone went in and educated him. He didn't know. They said, this is where your puppies come from. He was aghast. He stopped selling puppies, and he became one of the leading proponents for the measure in Glendale. And he has just opened a second store, so he's doing very well. And as other people have noted, the goodwill that it brings is worth much more than selling the puppies in puppy mills. I've done a lot of outreach to people in stores, malls, where there were stores selling puppies from puppy mills. And there are basically two kinds of people. The kind of people who say, oh, no, we want puppies from puppy mills are practically non-existent. There are two kinds of people. The people who say, yes, I know that's horrible, I'm glad you're doing this. And the people who say, what? I had no idea. I will never, buy a puppy from a pet store. So we're educating people. So it's just a matter of time until, it's the way we're going. It's the wave of the future. And I just thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. M. Catalano, and then under general comments not for or against the item, Phyllis Doherty.
Hello, my name is Mary Catalano, and I'm totally for this ordinance. I really appreciate the fact that you've taken your time to take on some compassion in Los Angeles. I've been a rescuer for over 10 years now, and I know that people aren't even necessarily aware that animals are killed in the pounds, which is unbelievable. Educated people in good neighborhoods where I show my animals, I take them from the bad neighborhood pounds and bring them to the good neighborhoods. Those people are not even aware of the fact that animals are sold, bought, and bred in puppy mills and are, of course, purebred animals often have more health problems than others. And people talk about responsible breeders, but I don't think it's responsible ever to breed an animal when animals are being killed. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like a math issue. It's like if you had a baby, a human baby, and you didn't like the color of that baby, should you make another baby or kill that baby? Doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing. We need to step up and show compassion and try, and by passing this will open up people's minds and educate people a great deal about compassion and the way that animals are treated in our country, and it'll be a fantastic role model for everybody else. And I applaud you all for taking it on. And also, one more thing, I just found out recently that rabbits are hardly ever adopted at pound. They are killed mostly because they're very They're not adopted very often. And there are people out there breeding rabbits. And rabbits can get pregnant just after giving birth, about a half an hour. That's what I heard as a statistic. So we don't really need more rabbits. Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
need adoption.
Thank you. Phyllis Doherty, to be followed by Matt Bruce.
Good afternoon, Phyllis Doherty. I put that under general comment because I realize that this is an emotional issue that's beyond the point of reason. But the actuality of this is we're not going to impact the puppy mills at all. I work with the puppy mills in Ohio and have for very many, many years. What we're going to do is drive people to local breeders and to internet brokers, because the people that go to pet stores that sell puppies want a certain breed and they want a puppy. We are going to lose the ability to educate them because we have the strictest laws in California, and those of you that have been in Sacramento know that you can't, a pet shop owner cannot hardly breathe in regard to an animal without it being in violation of a law of some kind. And we have the ability to go in and close them down at the slightest humane violation. This is a way of opting out of that obligation to protect the animals in pet stores, because now when they do not have live animals, they do not have to get permits from us. They become merely supply stores. And they can post pictures of internet animals and their local breeder friends all over their walls and say, oh, you'd like that one, here's the phone number. And believe me, I know because I've been there. So we are really losing our ability to protect the animals that we most are saying that we want to. They will flood in here with no one to educate and no one to take care of them. And our officers, if they cannot enforce the humane laws that we have and go in there and shut down those pet stores that violate them and put it on the front page of the newspaper, that's what makes you a humane city. Not running away from your obligation to these animals and saying you're not going to get to sell them, because there will be no education on the internet, and the people that will be selling them to the people that want purebred animals will do whatever they have to and want to sell them. They will breed them in any manner that they want to. They will advertise them anywhere, and these people will not go to a shelter. People keep talking about we will educate. We've been educating.
Thank you. Matt Bruce. And I think that'll be our last speaker.
Hello. My name is Matt Bruce, and I represent PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which has its West Coast headquarters here in Los Angeles. And PETA, along with our many thousands of members and supporters in LA, would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. We wholeheartedly support an ordinance to ban the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits at pet stores and other retail establishments. If passed, this law will spare countless animals from suffering and dying needlessly. Just every year, Los Angeles animal shelters take in thousands of homeless and unwanted animals, many of whom have to be put to death simply because there are not enough good homes available to them. The pet trade is a major contributor to the animal homelessness and overpopulation crisis. And every time an animal is bought at a pet store, one awaiting a home at a shelter loses that chance at adoption. Most of the animals sold in pet stores are bred in massive factory farm-like mills where breeder animals are warehoused in small cages for years, often in their own waste and deprived of their most basic needs. When they're no longer profitable, they are abandoned, culled, or auctioned off. It's a greedy, ruthless industry which churns out genetically unsound, unhealthy animals with no regard for the animals or the people who buy them. But regardless of the source of these animals sold in pet stores, the fact that they are bred by the millions always translates into homes taken from others whose lives depend on being adopted. What's more, pet shops encourage people to buy animals on impulse. Anyone with cash or credit can walk out with a puppy, kitten, or bunny who needs a lifetime of care. Animals who are purchased on a whim are often deprived of adequate care because the people who bought them are unprepared or unable to provide for their needs. Most animals sold at pet stores soon end up abandoned or neglected, further burdening our already overworked shelters. We respectfully urge Los Angeles to join West Hollywood and other communities across the country in saving animals' lives by passing the proposed ordinance to ban the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits at pet stores. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions, comments?
The issue, dogs and cats, I see no question why we should do that. The question comes in with the chickens and the rabbits. Brenda, if you can come up and discuss that, please. Our general manager.
Hi, Brenda Barnett, General Manager, LA Animal Services. So-
You support this, I assume?
Absolutely.
Okay, can you discuss the rabbits and the chickens?
Well, we left the chickens off because they're farm animals and they are, you can have them, and the rabbits also can be in feed stores. So the lines got a little bit blurry, and we were just trying to keep this a little bit cleaner in terms of legislation since it's really pet animals. I don't dispute the fact that bunnies are pets, but their bunnies and chickens and ducks are also sold in feed stores, so that gets into a different classification. That should be dealt with separately.
So do we want to include because I look at someone getting a specific breed of dog or a specific breed of cat. When you get a chicken, you get a chicken.
No, there are lots of different kinds of chicken. But I think because they're agricultural, I'm not saying that we shouldn't deal with them, but we should deal with them in a different ordinance.
So you think this should just limit it to cats and dogs?
Yes, for this one I do.
Because I want to make clarification on that. And I've had rabbits as pets, and they like eating wires in your house. If you've never had a rabbit for a pet, they love eating a wire. I don't know why they like wires, but.
But the benefit is
You
they're
ever
quiet.
had that problem?
I've had rabbits as pets.
You ever have them eating the wires? They like wire. I don't know why. They like wires. Why they like wires? They like. Yeah, but then your TV's going out. Anyway, that was and the chickens. I know a lot of people. I'm just trying to say you've got this type of dog, this type of cat,
Right.
specific breeds that people want. But when you get the male, female rabbit, and the rooster, the chicken. I mean.
Well, we get into some whole different classifications. For chickens, they have to be a certain distance from their property line, and I think it would just be a different kind of ordinance instead of this pet ordinance. But it's certainly something that we could look into, and we could look at the ordinances that we have and see if we need to make adjustments.
Because I think this motion calls for all four. I think it calls for the dogs, the cats, the chickens, and the rabbits. Or the motion did. The motion called for that, but I guess the ordinance is only calling for the.
Correct.
Okay, because I read the different documents.
In the discussion point that we did for the commission, that's where we suggested having that studied
Okay.
under a different type of legislation.
Well, see, I see ordinance 53.73, sale of commercially dogs, cats, and rabbits in pet stores, prohibition. So it says, it has dog, cats, and rabbits.
Yeah, we do have rabbits in there. We left the chickens out.
All right, so the chickens were left
Yeah.
out. All right.
Right.
So we're going with all three?
Yes.
And we'll worry about the chickens later?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're accurate on it, because there's so many different
Right. No,
versions.
it is confusing.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I got.
Mr. Alarcon, any comments?
Well,
Okay.
this is a this is a very troubling issue for me, and it's troubling not because I disagree with the intent. It's troubling because I don't believe we can enforce it. We can't even enforce the current laws, and so I don't know how we're going to enforce the multitudes of breeders that I anticipate will establish themselves and already have established themselves in my district and other districts throughout the city.
Well, this is for pet stores, and the pet stores are licensed. The pet stores are licensed.
I understand
whether
that, but
they
if
have, whether they sell
they're not
animals or
selling pets, then they're going to go to breeders in my district
Mhm.
that are in residences. And we can't get enforcement facilities. In fact, when we tried to open up the Mission Hills Center, you turned it into an adoption center, and the full enforcement provisions, or the full enforcement program that was supposed to go in there does not exist. So Brenda, it's nice to pontificate the attributes of a concept, but frankly, I don't see the enforcement going on right now. I don't know how you're going to enforce when people are driven to their neighborhoods, because I agree with Phyllis that what's going to happen is if a kid wants a poodle,
Right.
and their parents have the $800 or $1,000, whatever it takes to get a poodle, why are they going to go to a shelter to get a poodle when they can probably find one on the web? I just don't understand that. So they're still going to buy them, but they're going to buy it from probably an illegal breeder. I can point out houses in my district right now where they're selling illegally, and we can't get enforcement.
If you give me the addresses, I will have an officer make it.
Come on, Brenda. I've been around too long. I mean, I've heard that. You know how long it took me to get rid of the roosters? The rooster problem? We, see, if I had the confidence that we would enforce against illegal breeders just in my district, then I would not consternate about this. But I know that people are buying, most of the animals, the pets that are being purchased in my district are not being purchased at pet stores. They're not. Now, I can't speak for Councilman Koretz's district, but that's not what's going on in my district. So how are we, if we take away the sales from the pet stores, now, and believe me, I'm not with this association, but somewhere in between, I'm wondering, isn't there a better way to regulate this? Honestly, the problem I have is that our animal regulations department is so woefully underfunded in order to be able to do any kind of effective enforcement that I don't see how we could do this.
Richard, can I answer your question?
Well, you can, sure.
Take a shot
Somebody.
at it, please. I've been working on these issues for years, and if you try to say, well, we can't do this because this isn't being resolved, you never get anywhere. We've had to do it a piece at a time. So regulations that require that animals that come out of shelters be spayed and neutered, that was just one small piece of the problem, but it reduced the number of unnecessary births and euthanizations dramatically. But it's just one piece.
Who wrote that?
Right, but it's and at the state level where Ed Vincent did it, but it's a piece at a time. In this case, the piece is pet stores. Now, I'm unlike what Phyllis has said and what you've said. I believe I am a typical example of a pet store consumer. When I got married, I was a cat person. I knew my wife was a dog person.
You fight cats and dogs?
Hopefully not. But I went to a pet store. I saw a cute purebred Bichon right out of a Midwest puppy mill. Didn't know any better. And I bought it. But I didn't buy it because I was looking for a purebred dog that would cost me more money. I bought it because I wanted a cute pet at home. And this wouldn't drive me to a breeder. I wouldn't know today how to buy an animal from a breeder. If I had a choice between a bunch of cute dogs that came from a shelter that weren't purebred and cost me half as much money, I would have bought that dog instead from a shelter. I mean, from a pet shop. And that's the goal of this. Rather than breeding and producing more animals.
Paul, you are anything but the average person.
I was
when
absolutely
it comes to
average
when it comes. No, you are not.
I want
not.
a puppy mill dog.
All you have to do is go to Walmart, go to Target, go to any grocery store in the city, and see what kind of food products they're buying for their animals. The average people are not doing what you did. They're buying animals from illegal breeders, sometimes from family members who breed animals, and they're feeding them crap. That's the average.
But we're not.
So my
trying to take on every
concern,
issue
my
at
question
once.
is our department, does our department have the capability to shut down the illegal breeders because they're going to flourish?
I don't think one more illegal breeder will flourish. I think you'll hardly have any sales that will walk out the door. The same people will walk into pet
Paul,
stores
if you added an
by a
enforcement
different
component to
set of
this, it would be easy. Where is the enforcement behind this ordinance?
The enforcement just deals with pet stores. I promise you, once this goes into effect, it's almost self-enforcing. There will not be pet stores selling commercial.
I'm not talking about the
animals.
pet stores. I'm talking about
That's all this ordinance deals
I'm talking
with.
about the illegal breeders that will emerge.
You say it was
because
private underground.
I'm talking about the underground. That's what I'm talking about. What are we going to do? We keep cutting services, and you keep voting for budgets that cut animal regulation services, including the project. I'm not criticizing Brenda. She came in here, that agenda was already set. But to shut down the services in my area, in Mission Hills, you guys voted for that. I didn't. But you want to create a perfect world that doesn't exist in my district. So if you want to come in with an enforcement program that's specifically going to target that underground economy, let's hear it. But let's deal with reality. This is not dealing with reality. This is painting a picture that doesn't exist. You might fix a few stores, but you're not fixing our community.
It's a piece at a time.
Well, let's do both pieces. Let's do both sides of the equation.
Let me have my shot here. I'm chairing this meeting. So, again, we're attempting to resolve a piece at a time. I don't believe that you're going to drive many people underground. The people that are really sophisticated and want a purebred animal tend to already buy them from breeders. I think you will simply eliminate a large number of purebred animals that are bred in puppy mills under terrible conditions and sold in pet stores. They won't be in pet stores anymore. Instead, we'll be helping to solve the problem rather than contributing to it by having them come from rescues and shelters. It's a pretty simple fix that only solves a modest part of the problem. But you really have to do it a piece at a time. If you say, okay, you can't solve the pet store problem, you've got to solve the breeding problem. And this problem and that problem, you'll never get anywhere because the problems are too massive. You got to take them on one at a time. And I'm happy to work with you, even when you're not here and you're back in the state legislature, and still try to address this issue locally. But a step at a time. Let's get the pet stores under control, and then we can deal with the illegal breeders.
Actually, local versus state, this is the kind of thing that should be done on a state basis, where it's across the entire state. If it were done, in locality from locality, then people will just go to a different locality to get what they need. So it's great that we have it in the city of LA. They'll just go into the city of San Fernando. I mean,
that's true.
Which is in the middle of my district.
That's true. 50 different issues that we've dealt with that way. That was true of smoking.
No, the spay and neuter ordinance was
at the state level, so
the spay and neuter ordinance was quite different. It was quite different. That had to do with how a local community, how it defines its problem, and then targets its program toward that specific problem because the state is so diverse. Pet stores are not that diverse in the state of California, so you can easily regulate them across the state. Theoretically, but you and I both know the lobby won't allow it. But what I'm saying here is that, I don't want you advocates to be fooled. The problem in the city of Los Angeles is not the rules. The problem is we don't have the resources to enforce it. And whether we do it this way or that way, it doesn't matter. I'm going to give my friend a courtesy vote here. But when this comes back to haunt you, because we do not have the enforcement, and when they start breeding in your neighborhoods, but they're not going to breed in your neighborhoods. They're going to breed in my neighborhoods. That's part of the problem here. That's where most of the animals are purchased. Now, if you disagree with me, then why are they selling this crappy food off the shelves in these grocery stores? That's because people do not care about their animals like you care about your animals. And I'm not sure that this ordinance is going to reduce the overpopulation. In fact, it may increase it. And maybe the overpopulation will be, maybe you'll see breeding operations where they target. I actually think that they're going to start targeting the higher end animals more. I mean, because there won't be any competition. And the costs of the animals are going to increase. So I don't know. On that side of the argument, I agree with the industry. But understand what I'm saying. The main problem is that we do not have the capability to enforce. And they're just not going to be able to come out. Let me tell you, there is a house next door to the godparents of my wife that produces animals on a regular basis. I've sent animal regs out there several times. They just move the animals. They just move them to another house. They have several houses, and they move them. And then when things cool off, they move them back. And that's just the animals. That doesn't count the rats that they don't care. If they don't care about the dogs and cats, you think they care about the rats? You know, that are deteriorating the whole neighborhood. I mean, that's the kind of reality that I have in my district. And I have an animal-loving community. It's just that their perception of how to care for those animals may be a little different than on the west side. It's a fact. So I wish that, Brenda, while we pontificate how wonderful these programs are, I wish we could do more to have the enforcement side. And also the full complement of services that every other part of the city benefits from that I don't have, because that Mission Hills Center has never been developed as a full operation animal regulation center. So that's my beef.
I have one question about the internet. The internet, you can purchase animals on the internet?
Correct.
And is there any federal regulation dealing or focusing on that?
I don't, I would actually ask Judy Mancuso if she could answer on that. I'm just a city girl.
Thank you. I would, if I could speak to that, but I'd like to go back to Councilman Alarcon for a second. The permits for stores in the city of Los Angeles is a completely different regulation. I understand your issue with enforcement, and I think it's everybody's issue. But it is a separate issue when it comes to the stores, because stores have a business license. They have to get a permit for live animals, okay? So they come to the city of LA and they say, okay, I want to sell live animals. Okay, what are you going to sell? There's an application, rabbits, fish. I know this because I personally called 150 permit holders in the city of Los Angeles that have a permit with the department. And what I got back, what I got back was many of them didn't sell animals, number one. They just had products, but they got that permit originally. Others had fish and birds. So the ones actually selling dogs and cats, like Mr. Cannon pointed out, was very few, right? So that's the good news, that we're not putting out of business 150 stores, okay? And like I said, they don't have to go out of business to begin with. But where do people then get these animals? Where are people already getting these animals? So for people, we did a survey back when we were doing the spay and neuter ordinance, and I remember showing it to you way back when, 2007. And we asked people, it was a Zogby poll. We hired, an international provider to do this. And we asked people, where do you get your animals? And the number one place that they got their animals was from a family member or friend.
So to Richard's point, it's a huge problem, unaltered animals reproducing, and then the families looking to find homes for those animals, right? So what they do is they find as many homes as possible through family and friends, and then they dump them at the shelter, okay? So that's one source. Or on the street in a lot of cases in some of your council districts. Okay, so that's one source of unwanted animals. Now, the second group of people actually got from shelters and rescue groups, but then the next group got from pet stores. And then the internet came later. But so what people do, the impulse buy, to Councilman Koretz's point, is huge, because a lot of people will get them because it's an opportunity. They're there, they're cute, the kid is asking for it. Now you take home this animal, you don't really know what its disposition is going to be, or that it has these underlying problems and whatnot, and it's unaltered, right? So this is a source of those animals then reproducing. And what a lot of the shops, because we have these secret shoppers go in and ask questions at these stores, and what the shops, we have this on video, the shop owner will say, well, you know, $1,500 is too much for the puppy, but you can breed it and make that money back, right? This is enticing. Oh, I can have cute little puppies and get my money back. And so these shops are kind of perpetrating this whole horrible cycle of these unwanted litters, unwanted animals. So the internet, okay, so let's talk about it. So if somebody goes to a pet shop, it's impulse, or maybe they're looking for that special cat or dog. Then another group of people are very specific. You know, I want this, what's this water dog, the one that President Obama has? Thank you. I want that Portuguese water dog, right? And I'm going to find the best Portuguese water dog breeder I can find. Now they use the internet, right? And I think Paul might have said, Councilman Kress has about more sophisticated users might go to the internet. Now they go and they find these breeders all over the United States. They might find local, they might find even overseas. Now, if they do their due diligence, they'd go and visit these people and they'd see where these Portuguese water dogs are coming from. You know, is it a mass production type thing that you heard Patty talk about? Or is it a genuine, Brenda knows people, I don't personally, but I know that there's breeders out there that care about the lineage and producing good animals. Now, the folks in Pacoima and Sun Valley, they're not those folks. I wish they were, but they're not. They're mostly breeding, and I've been to these facilities as well. They're breeding mass amounts of dogs to sell for income. And so keeping the quality of life low, because you don't have to pay much for that quality of life, it's cheap, you can produce a lot, and whatever money you make, you make. So, yes, they're all avenues of getting animals. They're all creating unwanted litters because they're unaltered. But to Paul's point, can we solve them all here at the table today? Absolutely not. But what we can solve is what's within our reach. And Councilman Alarcon has an enormous point. His district is littered with backyard breeders. And these people are not only doing it in their backyards, as Brenda and Jim Bickhart saw for themselves when they went to some of these facilities, but they're warehousing them. They're warehousing them, and it is a sad state of affairs, and I am with him on this. And I think, I don't want to speak for the department, but it seems like the priorities are set by the council and the commission. And yes, there's limited resources, but by golly, if you prioritize it, get it done. We all know they're there. Send people out, make it a priority, you know? All right.
Do you still have that task force with LAPD?
We do, and we also have a committee that's sort of an informal committee that's, we call ourselves Stop Illegal Breeding. and we have a variety of people, some people in this room who come to meetings, and we're working on a variety of things. We have city attorneys working with us, because part of what people don't understand is we do go out, we give people a citation if they have a dog that's illegally being bred, but then you have to give them a period of time to make it right. And I know one of the questions that came up was, well, why can't you just take the contraband? Well, the city attorneys were able to answer that for us. Puppies aren't illegal, pot is. So you take the pot, but you don't take the puppies. So we're working through quite a process on this right now.
Yeah, and one thing that Judy said, which I think is a fair point, again, we're getting animals out of the shelters into the pet stores, but the pet stores are no longer a breeding opportunity, because every animal out of the shelter has to be spayed or neutered. So it's not contributing to the problem. One thing I would note is that I met with PJAC, the pet industry representatives, and we did discuss some of their proposals. And I would say if we weren't considering anything else that was an improvement, they suggested some things that would be an improvement. If we required every pet store to have 1 or 2 days of adoptions, that would be better than what we have now, and some of their other suggestions. But as it was suggested earlier in the testimony, that would sort of be the light version of what we're proposing. And as long as we can solve a chunk of the problem, I think it makes more sense than going light on it. So I'm not recommending that we switch to their suggestions, although I think some of them weren't bad, and in cities that aren't doing anything else, it would be a step forward. But I think this is a rare opportunity for a big step forward.
I make a motion that we approve the matter.
And I will second that, but I would note that there's a technical change that probably should be made, because this version of the ordinance suggests that it should take place on July 1st, and I would amend it to go into effect 6 months after the effective date of the ordinance. And other than that, I will second your motion.
Could I just ask a couple of technical questions to Brenda? Sure. Brenda, what are what animals are euthanized the most at the shelters?
Which one?
What animals are euthanized the most at the shelters?
Well, we have a high number of percentage-wise of cats and of dogs. We have a lot of dogs, and particularly
What
the
kind
dogs
of, what kind of dogs?
Pit bulls are first,
Pit bull.
Chihuahuas.
And how many animals are we euthanizing? How many dogs are we euthanizing?
Well, it's around 20,000 total a year, and I think about 60% of those are dogs. I'd have to look at my numbers.
And these 11 stores, how many do they sell a year?
That I don't know, but it is seasonal, and around the holidays from November until through Christmas, they have a high season. Parts of the season they're lower. I don't know what their actual numbers are. Some of it depends on the store and the kind of promotions they do. I know that the Love and Leashes, the little pet store that has our shelter dogs at Westlake Pavilion, I think they've placed probably 300 dogs by now, and just part-time, not even open every day. I'm sure that Barkworks upstairs sells a lot more because they're open 7 days a week and they have a huge selection. So it's going to vary store by store.
Okay, thank you.
If we could call a question on this, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I believe this is passed unanimously. And there being no other business before this committee, we are adjourned.